Hello viewers, this is Mitul here. In this module 8, the advanced query concepts, what we would be covering is first of all we'll be covering is the store procedure, and within the store procedure what we will see is how to create the store procedure, how to alter it, how to drop it, how to execute, and what are the kind of permissions that we can grant to the store procedure, what are the dependencies, like what all dependent objects are there within that, right? And then the parameters, how many parameters you could pass to the store procedure, whether it could be input or an output parameters. Then the third type is like the returning a data from a store procedure. How can we return the data from a store procedure? Then the fourth kind is like the recompiling. How can we recompile the store procedure? Okay, and then the renaming of the store procedure that we will see. Then we will see the exception handling. How can we manage the exceptions occurring from the store procedure? So all right, so let's just start with the 8.1.4 recompiling a store procedure. Now there are important points that we need to remember first of all. Okay, so on recompilation, based on the current state of the database and database object procedures, query plan is updated and optimized for the better performance. Now when you say like database and database object changes, or based on the current state of the database, meaning like there is a table and in which like a particular number of columns are there, so based on which only, and based on the columns being used in a store procedure, that would create the query plan. Okay, now let's say tomorrow there are out of five columns, you might increase five more columns to the same table. So then again that query plan will get updated and optimized basically. So on recompilation happens, and it goes and checks to the referenced objects and checks to see like what all objects has been affected or has been updated as per the current state of the database. Apart from the table or the objects referred in the store procedure, if there is any database level changes also happen, then also this recompilation is performed. Okay. So it's like basically very important part of the store procedure. You can do the recompilation, and which will just optimize the performance of the query. Okay. Now the second point is like on each restart of the SQL server. So the moment your server keeps on restarting every particular schedule, maybe in a production environment we may not see that happening frequently, but DBS does carry out some weekly like the cleanup activity or backup activity, or sometimes like they might need to clean up the cache and all of those maintenance activity purpose, right? All those purpose, whenever they schedule a restart of the server, at that point of time automatically the recompilation occurs. Okay, so now in the recompilation, what happens is like the underlying object, wherever the design has been changed or any changes has been happened, then in that case it will be basically updated. Okay, so the query plan will get updated in that case. Now the third point is like the force recompilation. Based on the current parameter values that are used by the procedure, they are included generating the query plan. Query plan. So basically when we force the recompilation, what happens is like for each of the defined parameters for the store procedure, they are going to be used while creating the query plan, because when the system designs the query plan, it considers the passed in input parameters, what kind of data type it has, what is the length of the data, the parameter is input parameter, output parameter, right? All of those things it considers while preparing the query plan. Now let's say today you have two parameters to the store procedure. Later point you might have three parameters. Maybe after a few days you try to include one or more parameters to that. Means the definition of the store procedure has changed, and along with that the query plan also needs to change, because now on there will be three parameters that you would be passing to it, right? So according to that the query plan should also change, because the passed in parameter will also be used somewhere in the query or of the store procedure, correct? That will again filter your data, that will again impact the output, correct? or like like differentiate between your previous output to the current output, right? So in that way the query plans are getting updated. Okay, so that's very important in here. Now the fourth kind of point that to remember is like recompilation happens at a statement level for a stored procedure. Okay, it doesn't happen at the entire stored procedure level. Suppose say you have say like 50 lines of code within the stored procedure. Now there is a only single line or maybe couple of lines have only changed. When you made a change to a stored procedure, you made a couple of lines change, which definitely affects the definition change. And in a way, like the query plan also requires to be updated. So what happens the moment you recompile the stored procedure now after you making your change, it will not consider the entire stored procedure for the recompilation. Instead, it will just go and check like all the like the impacted statements or maybe the line of code that you have updated, based on which only the recompilation happens. It doesn't compile based on the entire stored procedure lines, maybe like 50 or whatever it could be, right? It may never happen that way. Okay. So it's a very, very important point, like a statement level compilation happens, which is a feature built in the SQL Server. Okay, that's very beneficial. Then the fifth one is the using the recompile query hint. We can start to use the recompile query hints, like to get the benefit of the recompilation. Now, whenever this recompilation happens, it can be considered. It can consider basically two of the things: the existing parameters as is, right, whatever there may be, and then supposingly you introduce few more parameters, could be the local variables or local variables you defined within the store procedure. Those all will also be covered while designing the query plan. So that also will give us an improvement into the performance. Okay, so when you do the recompilation, so these all are the very important points. Please keep it noted or repeat the video as much as you can to understand it, and then start to leverage this benefit, the fantastic feature of the store procedure. So let us just start with the first kind of recompilation. How can we do? There are three options basically. The first way of recompiling a store procedure is when you create the store procedure or alter the store procedure. At that time only you can just define or say like write a keyword called with recompile. That is the first way to implement the recompilation. So as and when you do the recompilation of or like a modification of the procedure, you create it or alter it or modify it. At that point of time only the recompilation would happen. Okay. That's the only thing. Rest of the thing I'm just keeping it as is. Nothing major would make a difference in output here, but if there is a big or complicated store procedure which is taking like maybe 10 to 15 seconds or maybe more than 20 seconds or something, in those kind of procedures, if you make some like performance optimization, if you do, and then you want to check like whether the previous performance was better or the current one is better, so at that kind of period you might use this option. It would be helpful to you. Okay. Now the second kind of recompile option, how can we use it? Second way, there is the first one we saw as at the creation or alteration of the procedure. Now there is a second way, which is recompile query hint. Now this one can be used when this one can be used with the execute statement. When you execute a store procedure, at that time also you can define that way, or at that time also you can use this keyword with recompile. That will also be helpful in that way. And then the third type of way how can we do the recompilation is using the SP recompile. It's a system store procedure which requires I'll go with these rules that I have defined. I'll first explain the type of options which are available. So let us see like the third way of using it. It could be execute in the full, or you could just use the initial for later, which is fine. So execute SP recompile is the system store procedure to which you will pass a parameter called the store procedure name itself. So whatever the store procedure name itself we have, that is what we will be passing to it, and then it will do the recompilation of the store procedure. All right. Now let us just understand the difference or the kind of permissions we might need for all these three of the options. So the first one requires, when you use the v3 recompile while creating or altering, you first of all we need a create procedure permission on that database. Particularly whenever you try with any of the databases, you need to have the create procedure permission required. Then you need the alternation or say like a alter table or alter procedure kind of a database object alteration permission is required on a particular schema. Say like you are using a DBO, then on a DBO schema you need to have the permission to alter the objects. Okay. Then the second one is the same, like the recompile query hint, in which what kind of different permissions you might require is there is create procedure, likewise in the previous case, like the same way alter permission on the store procedure for a schema. Okay. And then the third one also requires the third one only requires the alter permission on the specified procedure, not the create one, because since we are not here touching to the definition of the procedure here, only just using the system procedure, so it will just require us the alter permission on a specific store procedure. Okay, that's it for the thing. Thank you.